Okay, so my first argument about Donald Trump was just a deductive argument using a hypothetical syllogism based off of a universal generalization. Um, and that went so something along the lines of all anti democratic actions are fascistic. So that's the generalization. And then here's the syllogism. So supporting a riot against a democratic election is anti-democratic. So X is Y. Trump supported the riots through pardons. So Trump did the antecedent, supporting a riot against the democratic election is anti-democratic. So supporting a riot. X, Trump did X, therefore Trump embodies at least one fascistic tendency. Trump, therefore, since all X is Y, therefore X, therefore Y. And then, I guess we can start. So all anti-democratic actions are fascistic. That was my first premise. You could argue that not all anti-democratic actions are fascistic. So, for example, a lot of times we use representation, equal representation, and that's technically not completely democratic. So getting to equal the largest cities, let's say, would actually have a lot more people in them, and then therefore a lot more sway in elections. So we have things like the electoral college, which I don't agree with, but one of the arguments against that is that it would be it'd be too unfair, and there would be a lot of people unrepresented because they have less people in their regions. Right? But I think even if there was that pushback, I could just say most anti-democratic actions are fascistic, and then the argument's still gonna hold because I'm just gonna argue that, okay, maybe not all anti-democratic actions are fascistic, but if all of this is anti-democratic, that is fascistic, and then there's just a slightly bigger circle where it's not, then I'm going to argue that what Trump did is inside the smaller circle. And there we go. So then that way the truth conclusion would still hold. And then people, you could push back that, I'm sure as MAGA would, that it is indeed not a democratic election because there was missing votes or something like that. So if it was the case that this wasn't a democratic election, it was actually rigged, then of course this wouldn't be anti-democratic, it'd be pro-democratic. And of course that would make the argument fall apart, because then he wouldn't be exhibiting one of those. And then I'm sure a pushback on Trump supported the rioters through pardons. Of course, if you do believe that it was pro-democratic and the election was rigged, then of course you would pardon the rioters to uphold democracy, as the argument would go. And once again, that would mean that it was not a fascistic tendency. I guess I did it kind of backwards. I was doing the third point before the second. But assess the probability of the premises being true. Of course, since this is a deductive argument, if the premises are true, then the conclusion has to follow. All right, and then the inductive argument about the sun is a probabilistic generalization, and then I used the method of difference. So I said that the sun is very likely tomorrow because I've seen the sun rise every single day of my life, and every person throughout human history has seen the same. So that's a probabilistic generalization because the sun has risen for a long time for a lot of people. Therefore, it will likely consider to do so, at least for just tomorrow, like I specified in the argument, right? And then secondly, with the method of difference, um, I pointed out that, science we know about the causes for something like a supernova or just the death of a sun in general. And as far as we know, none of those are currently present in our sun. Therefore, it's not likely that the sun's going to explode. Um, so that's the method of difference, because it's taking the cases that we know a sun explodes, so X, Y, and Z, and then it's saying that in our case, where we only have, let's say, X, the fact that it's a sun. And then Y and Z are missing, therefore the sun will rise tomorrow. I mean, the premise that everyone has seen the sunrise is certainly true, and the premise that I've seen the sunrise every day of my life is also true. And so that's fairly strong evidence that the sun will rise tomorrow, because the universe is fairly stable when it comes to the large bodies, especially like the sun. And then the ones about science, it could be the case that there are factors that we're missing. So there could just be explanations that we don't know about. And so that would mean that the conclusion wouldn't be nearly as strong, because there's just a factor we're not accounting for at all. Yeah, I think the form of this argument isn't very, like, the probabilistic generalization isn't very strong. Because that part, just because everyone's seen it so far, doesn't mean that, hypothetically, that a black hole was recently approaching and it was going to swallow up the sun tonight, and by tomorrow we wouldn't see it rise. So that point isn't very good. But the point about the factors that we know about is a lot stronger. But it could be the case, so in the content of the argument, that there are factors, like I said, that it turns out dark matter behaved in a way that we didn't know, and so all of a sudden it can spontaneously swallow the sun, or there's just something we didn't know about the universe. I'd say the form of the argument is fairly strong as well, because it's contingent on the fact that we currently don't have the factors around the sun, like the factors that cause the sun to die. But if that changed, then the argument would change as well. It's adaptive in that way. It's not so strong to say that we know for a fact that the sun will continue to rise every day.